So now you're ready to make the single crochet stitch. So you got to get back in a crocheting position if you aren't already. As a reminder, that's taking your non-dominant hand, facing the palm to you, then putting the piece in front of your palm, and then wrapping the yarn once around your pinky. And notice how close, by the way, I picked up the yarn compared to the piece. I picked it up here, I didn't pick it up down here. Makes it easier to ultimately have the right amount of tension. So you wrap it once around your pinky, bring the piece up over the back of your hand, drape it over your index finger, and then hold on to it with your thumb and your middle finger. If that was fast for you, check out the previous video for a slower demo. And the other things I want you to note here, in proper crocheting position, we want the loop that your hook is going to go into on the top of the circle and closer to the hand that's going to hold the hook. And then you want the stitch markers, these plastic doohickeys, on the other side of the circle. And you also want to place this yarn tail, this cut off piece of yarn, behind the piece. You're not going to touch that until the very end. So now we're going to put the hook in the loop. And the first step is to know where to put your hook. Luckily, these stitch markers tell you exactly where to put it. We are going to put the hook in the exact same spot that this differently colored stitch marker is in. So this stitch marker is under a stitch that I like to call these horizontal V's. We're going to put the hook under that V, like so. And see how I use my yarn hand, by the way, to help get the hook through. If you're having a tough time, you can always do that. Now it should look like you've got 3 strands of yarn on your hook. And now we're going to do what's called a yarn over, and we're going to bring it through only the first 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to show you real quick what I mean by that. It's going to look like this. We're going to end up with having 2 loops on the hook. And now I'll break it down for you how I did that. Let me just make this yarn tension tighter. All right. So first, get back in the position you're in. I would recommend, if you haven't already, pulling the stitch marker off to the side away from your hook so it doesn't get all tangled up. And now we're going to yarn over. So at this point, the hook, the tip of the hook is facing me, and the whole hook is in front of the working yarn. To yarn over means that you're going to bring the yarn over the top of the hook from the back to the front. Another way of thinking about that is thinking of just pushing the hook into the yarn like so. Now, to get it cleanly through just those first 2 loops on the hook, I'm gonna actually pull the piece and the hook away from each other. So I artificially make that gap a little bit bigger where the hook's gonna pass through. And I'm also gonna rotate the tip of my hook so that it goes from facing me. I'm gonna rotate it down about 90 degrees as I bring it through those loops. And I'm doing all this to minimize the chance that my hook gets caught on anything in there. Once it's past that, I'm going to rotate the hook again to face me. And I'm not going to stop there. It's very important that you then move the hook over to your yarn hand and pull the hook a little bit away from your piece, because what you're trying to do here is make sure that the loops on your hook are large enough so that your stitches will also be loose enough for you to crochet into later. And the goal is to create loops on your hook that are always the same size and also always a little bigger than the diameter of the tip of your hook. And I'm actually going to ask you to, in the beginning, get in the habit of checking this a lot. And the way to check that is to see if you can real easily take your entire hook out of the loops that are on it. If that's tough for you, it means that your loops are too tight. And to fix that, you need to pull the hook away. So see, I'm going to exaggerate it to show you. When you pull the hook away, it makes the loop that's closer to the top of the hook much, much bigger. So I'm going to bring it back down though. I don't want it that big. You'll get a sloppy stitch if you do. Okay, almost done. To complete the single crochet stitch, you're going to yarn over again. Remember, that's bringing the yarn over the top of the hook from the back to the front, or thinking of it as just pushing the hook into the yarn. And then remember, pull the piece and the hook away from each other. See how I am stretching these loops so the hole that my hook needs to go through artificially becomes a little bigger. And see, here's another angle to show you why I go from rotating the hook from facing me to rotating it down so that it more cleanly goes through those holes, through that loop, through those loops on the hook. This time I bring it through both loops on the hook, so I'm left with one loop on the hook. And remember to bring that loop all the way down on your hook and draw your hook a little away from the piece to make that loop a little bigger than it would normally be. And you want it to be big enough that you can very easily take the entire hook out of it like so. And there you have it, your first stitch.